Okay, so picture this a queen, right? But she's draped in shadows, kind of mysterious, with pomegranate seeds staining her fingertips.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
She's a ruler, yeah, but there's this catch. She can never truly leave her kingdom.
It's Persephone, isn't it?
You got it. And it's like this question, can you be both powerful and trapped? It's something we've all kind of wrestled with, haven't we?
Yeah.
At least in our own lives.
Yeah, totally. And that image of Persephone, the pomegranate, that whole underworld vibe, that one fateful bite, it instantly makes you think, what does real power even mean? Like, is it about total freedom or can it exist within limits?
And things get even more interesting when you throw Ishtar into the mix.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a power move. She basically explodes into the underworld, all about defying the rules, like, I'll take destiny into my own hands, thank you very much.
Two goddesses, two totally different game plans.
It's a classic showdown. I'm so here for this.
It really is a classic juxtaposition, and it pops up everywhere, right? In stories, in history, even in our own lives. But with these goddesses, it's like the stakes are huge. We're not just dealing with personal drama here. It's like the balance of life and death, the whole cosmic shebang.
Right. And our sources are giving us this really vivid picture of what both Persephone and Ishtar's reigns are all about. But this one thing really jumps out. Ishtar doesn't just, politely enter the underworld. She marches right up to Persephone and throws down this challenge. She's like, why be okay with these chains when you could be out there in charge just like me?
That's a direct hit. And, even though she's talking to Persephone, it's like that question is echoing in our own ears, isn't it? It makes you stop and think, how do I deal with control, with ambition, even with just accepting things the way they are?
Right. Like, when do we push the boundaries and when do we play it smart? I mean, that's real life stuff right there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and our sources actually back this up. Persephone is nobody's fool. She is a queen in her own right, even if she wields power differently than, say, Ishtar.
That's such a good point. And it's so easy to fall into that trap, right? To see Persephone as just a victim, but no way. She's made choices, even with all the limitations she's dealing with. And that quiet strength, the way she leads without throwing her weight around, that's what's intriguing. Like, what's her secret? And what can we learn from it?
And then you have Ishtar, right? She's practically strutting around like, yeah, I defied the gods, I grabbed fate by the throat, what of it?
She's not exactly humble about it.
Not even a little. On the surface, you're thinking, okay, that's freedom personified. But then you dig a little deeper, and our sources start poking some holes in that image. Is it really freedom if you're always conquering, always striving for more? Could even a goddess like Ishtar be, enslaved by her own ambition?
I think that's the part that makes this whole power thing so complex. We tend to picture freedom as this absolute thing, no strings attached. But what if it's more nuanced than that? What if it's about recognizing your limits and then deciding how you're going to deal with them?
That's interesting because that's kind of like the big takeaway Persephone offers. It's like she's saying maybe, just maybe, real power isn't about breaking all the rules, but about really understanding them.
Right. That's not what we're used to hearing.
Not at all. It's like she's saying, work smarter, not harder.
Totally. And it's crazy relevant, especially now when we're constantly told to hustle harder and break free from all limitations. It's almost like a revolutionary act to say, maybe there's another way. Maybe there's real wisdom in accepting some limitations, in figuring out how to work within boundaries to build something meaningful.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, the obstacle is the way. Maybe Persephone's onto something there. But then she throws this other curveball. She points out this difference between acting out of defiance, which is like Ishtar's whole brand, and making real conscious choices. Is there really a difference?
Oh, there's definitely a difference. It's like, are you reacting to something you don't like, or are you actually choosing how you're going to respond? And Persephone seems to be saying that real power comes from making those conscious choices, even when you don't have all the freedom in the world.
Which, to be fair, isn't saying that Ishtar is like this force of destruction. She's all about change, shaking things up.
And sometimes we need that, right?
Totally. We need people who challenge the status quo.
Exactly. Change is essential for growth. It's how we evolve. The key is to make sure that energy is pointed in the right direction. It shouldn't be about tearing everything down, but about creating something new and better. And maybe, just maybe, that's part of Ishtar's journey too, to find that balance, that balance between her fiery, go-getter nature and a more mindful approach to change.
It's like we're watching two sides of the same coin, aren't we? Persephone and Ishtar, both incredibly powerful, but with completely different playbooks and the lessons, worlds apart.
It's like they're holding up mirrors to each other, showing the hidden costs and the unexpected perks of walking their chosen paths. Ishtar, in her relentless pursuit of freedom, seems almost trapped in this cycle of endless striving.
And then you have Persephone. At first glance, she's the ultimate captive. But she might have stumbled onto a quieter, deeper form of power by accepting her limitations. Think about it. She's the queen of her own internal world, no matter what's going on outside.
It makes you wonder, how often do we equate freedom with having no boundaries, no limits? What if true freedom comes from choosing which boundaries to push against and which ones to accept as part of ourselves?
It's a radical idea, especially in a world that's constantly telling us to break free and hustle harder. But what if the most liberating choice is accepting our limitations and working within them?
It's like we're conditioned to see limitations as weaknesses, but what if they're actually sources of a different kind of strength? The strength to adapt, to compromise, to get creative within constraints.
And to recognize that not every limitation needs to be shattered. Some limitations provide structure, meaning, even purpose.
Think about Persephone's role as queen of the underworld. She brings balance to a realm that could easily be consumed by darkness. Maybe her acceptance of her own duality, her ability to exist in both the world of the living and the dead, is what makes her such a powerful ruler.
Precisely. Her power comes from embracing those seemingly contradictory parts of herself, not rejecting them. Maybe that's a lesson we can all take to heart. Instead of chasing some idealized version of ourselves, what if we embrace the fullness of who we are, limitations and all?
That is a powerful thought. It makes you wonder, what does Ishtar take away from this encounter? Does seeing Persephone's quiet strength, her acceptance of her fate, change anything for her?
I think it has to, on some level. Remember, she waltzed into the underworld with a challenge, almost smug about her own approach to power. But in Persephone, she encounters someone who has found a different kind of freedom, a different kind of strength, through acceptance, not defiance. It throws her whole worldview into question.
It's like Persephone planted a seed of doubt in Ishtar's mind. Suddenly, her constant need to conquer, to chase freedom, it doesn't seem as certain, as fulfilling.
Exactly. And that seed of doubt, even if it's just a flicker, is powerful. It opens up the possibility of growth, of change, even for a goddess as seemingly unstoppable as Ishtar. She might not abandon her fiery nature, but maybe she starts to question where that fire is leading her.
That's a hopeful thought, that even the most fixed parts of ourselves, our personalities, our approaches to the world, can evolve.
Absolutely. It suggests we're never truly stuck. There's always potential for growth and transformation, even within the boundaries of who we think we are.
So if Persephone's journey is about finding freedom within limitations, maybe Ishtar's is about discovering the power of directed change, like a controlled burn instead of a wildfire.
That's a fantastic way to put it. It's not about extinguishing her fire, but about learning to wield it more consciously, more purposefully.
It makes you wonder, what if Ishtar could combine her drive for change with Persephone's wisdom and acceptance? What kind of incredible transformations could they create together?
Now that's a thought. It suggests that true power might not be about choosing one path over the other, but finding a way to integrate seemingly opposite forces. Change and acceptance, freedom and limitation, fire and balance. It makes you realize these ancient myths aren't just stories. They're reflections of the very human struggles we still deal with today. And maybe, just maybe, they hold some hidden wisdom that can help us navigate our own journeys of power, freedom, and self-discovery. You know, it's funny how these ancient myths can really sneak up on you. Like we start with these epic figures, goddesses, right? And suddenly, bam, we're looking in the mirror, questioning everything we thought we knew about, like power, freedom, the whole shebang.
It's true. And that's what's so cool about mythology, right? These stories, they're ancient, but they still resonate with us today. Like they tap into something deeper, something we all relate to, no matter who we are or where we come from. And with Persephone and Ishtar, we're talking about some pretty universal struggles. Figuring out how to be powerful, how to make your own choices, even when it seems like the odds are stacked against you.
And what I really appreciate is that neither goddess is set up as like the hero or the villain of the story.
Totally.
It's not about picking sides like Team Persephone versus Team Ishtar. It's more about like recognizing the wisdom in both of their paths, even if they seem totally different.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important point because power, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. What one person might see as a weakness, someone else might see as their greatest strength. It all comes down to how we choose to look at things, the situations we're handed, the circumstances we find ourselves in.
So, okay, here we are at the end of our deep dive. We've explored these different paths to power, these different ideas about freedom, but where does that leave us, the listeners? Like, what do we do with all this?
If there's one big takeaway here, one question we should all be asking ourselves, it's this. What are the chains in our own lives? Which ones should we be trying to break free from? And then are there others, maybe, that we need to look at differently, maybe reshape them, or even accept them as part of who we are?
Ooh, that's deep. Because it's not just about, rebelling against anything and everything that feels restrictive. It's about being thoughtful, making deliberate choices about what really defines us, how we live, how we see ourselves, the whole deal.
Exactly. True freedom, it doesn't always mean living a life without any limits. It's about figuring out which limitations are actually holding us back and which ones are, well, part of what gives our lives meaning, structure, all of that. It's about finding that courage to break free from the things that stifle us, but also being brave enough to accept the things that make us who we are.
So it's like finding that sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
Between Persephone's inner strength and Ishtar's drive to create change.
I think so. And who knows, maybe somewhere in that space between those seemingly opposite forces, that's where we discover a whole new level of power, something we never even knew we had in us.
That's definitely something to think about. So until next time, keep asking those tough questions. And remember, sometimes the most powerful move you can make is choosing your chains wisely.